Well, Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back on the Just Okay Sports Podcast. I'm your village idiot, or not idiot, really. That's my brother, Daryl, which isn't here. It's just me, Jared. So you guys get to deal with me all of this podcast. Daryl's currently probably stuffing his face full of turkey. Troy is busy getting his house ready to stuff other people's face full of turkey. Can I say that? I don't know. We're all a bunch of idiots. And by the way, we're just okay. We're on just about every streaming platform, every podcast platform. So make sure that if you're listening, like, subscribe, give us 5-star review, leave a comment, and give us a little bit of interaction. Maybe we can get this thing rolling. It'll always be free, never any paywalls. It's always a good time. We're just a bunch of fans talking football. So, and of course, like I said, with the holidays, a little chaotic. So we're doing something different. Like I said, it's just me. I was the only one that had any availability apparently. So because of the holidays, Thanksgiving's here. Everybody's going to be getting fat, watching football, having a good time. So, I thought we'd have I'm going to have a little, I guess, Thanksgiving talk. So, guys, tell me what you guys are going to be eating, in the comments. Are you going to have the traditional turkey? I've had, like, for some reason this year, I feel like I've seen a lot more people having, like, non-traditional Thanksgiving dinners. Like, just like random stuff. I don't even know. Like somebody was like having steaks and stuff, which I'm totally down for. But yeah, I'm actually I just got a turkey breast. What's funny is I'm making myself an entire Thanksgiving dinner. So I got a turkey, like a little bit of a turkey breast. I've got actually got a small deal of ham. So the smoker will be going to do some mashed potatoes. I've got a pumpkin pie, cranberry sauce, all those sorts of things. So I'm doing like a traditional, but just by myself. And then they had like Publix had these little banana pudding things. My mom used to make banana pudding every year for Thanksgiving. So I was like, yeah, I got to grab one of those because I cannot make banana pudding to save my life. I've never perfected that. So yeah, just having a little traditional, but I'm just going to be here at the house by myself. I'm going to be watching a lot of football. It's kind of like actually a little bit of relief because, I just need like that a break from adulting. I've been kind of going pretty hard and heavy the last month or two. So to have like a 4-day weekend of doing pretty much whatever I want is pretty chill. So, but speaking of football, there's a lot of football going on this week. We have Ohio State, Michigan is this weekend, guys. Like big game there, Iron Bowl. I mean, there's just a lot of good football. We're going to talk about some of those games later in our pick'ems, but like it's always fun. I always like the holidays. This is like I have some of my fondest memories. I think a lot of people have their fondest memories of like Thanksgiving time. You have NFL games, you have college games. There's so much sports on, and that's kind of like where I guess us as Americans rally around, and we have family and put sports on TV and eat a lot of good food. So hopefully everybody's having a good Thanksgiving. But like I said, there's going to be a lot of games on. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The college football rankings did come out, though, and I want to talk about it a little bit. So I'm just going to run through the top 10 and then where Oklahoma lands. So we have Georgia at number 1, then Ohio State, Michigan, Washington. Florida State is the first one out at 5, and then Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Mizzou, Louisville, and then Oklahoma falls at 13. So, yeah, the Florida State one was a little, I mean, I guess that sort of makes sense. And that's where this whole discussion, like Kirk Herbstreit said, it's not about picking the best team. It's about picking like the most deserving team or the most competitive teams, or like there's all these different lingos, and it's like it depends on who you talk to at what time. It's such like I think we need to develop a good framework, but it seems to me like Florida State maybe dropped. I know that they struggled a little bit early with Northern Alabama, I believe. Obviously, Jordan Travis going down is going to play an impact on their season going forward because he is just such a crazy good quarterback. But I still think they're one of the best teams. But Washington also has played lights out. So a lot of things are going to happen. Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan, I feel like they're playing this weekend. That's going to be a little bit of an elimination game. I think that's going to be a real dogfight. I don't think that's going to be a blowout. I think for once, I think almost everybody's cheering for Ohio State. So because of the whole Michigan scandal. But yeah, I mean, some interesting things there. Texas is really hanging around. I think if Texas wins out, they win the conference championship game, then they have a shot. But honestly, I still feel like they would need some chaos because I think even without Jordan Travis, it's going to be interesting to see. Even without Jordan Travis, there's a good chance Florida State's going to finish strong and win out. If Oregon wins out, they're in. The winner of Michigan, Ohio State, as long as they win the Big Ten, they're in. And then Georgia is maybe in regardless. I don't know. So just a lot of scenarios. It's going to be a really interesting thing to see after the conference championship games. I don't know. It's just been a weird year. It's like even some of the award finalists. I saw some talk. I feel like we're getting to a point now where like the social media presence in sports has reached a level where people get a little bit more extra attention, even though the stats or record or whatever don't match that. Now, I agree with this ranking, but I was talking about like, for instance, Denny Stutzman isn't on pretty much any of the awards lists, but he leads in like a number of statistical categories or is in the top 5 of like several major statistical categories, even though he's missed 1.5 games. And especially when you look at the list of people they put on there, the dude played basically 1.5 games hurt or was not playing. And really 2.5 games if you include the last one because he had the flu. And he still has better stats. So I don't know. And, the running back one was the same. I don't think OU necessarily has anybody that belongs on the running back list just because it's been such by committee. But yeah, just a weird year for that sort of stuff. So I'll be interested to see how some of those play out. But yeah, we're getting down to that time where like I really am not the type of person that I don't pay attention to the rankings or the award lists until we get to about this point in the season, because then it starts to matter because we start really getting to the point where that margin for somebody to jump is so much less. Like OU is pretty much is out of contention for a college football playoff. We know that. But what they are in contention for, technically, mathematically, however you want to phrase that, Big 12 title game. Now, OU does not control their own destiny. They, of course, need to beat TCU this weekend. And we will talk about that in just a minute. But they need a little bit of help. So the easiest way, as I understand it, now this has been changed a few times now, or established or whatever. Like the Big 12 has completely botched how to describe this. And the tiebreaker scenario, like the way they've done this, is quite honestly pretty bad. But here we are. So the easiest way I think is that Texas loses. The easiest way is for Texas and OSU both to lose, right? Then OU's in automatically. Another scenario is Texas loses, and then I believe that Kansas State would need to lose to Iowa State also. OSU losing to and Texas. I believe if OSU loses, Texas wins, then that means an OU Texas Big 12 title game. And Texas losing and OSU winning means that you need K-State to also beat OSU. There's a lot of scenarios. This is all, I'm trying to do the math, so this is all, again, I'm an idiot. I'm not a reporter. Basically, how I'm approaching is I'm basically, unfortunately, cheering against both Texas and Oklahoma State. There's a very good possibility, though. Texas playing Tech. They're favored by quite a few. OSU's playing BYU at home. They're both playing at home. I just don't see a scenario where both of them lose. And it's really hard for me to see one of them losing. So the chance for OU getting in is pretty slim, but it's mathematically still possible. I'm not saying I've given up hope, but, either way, OU wins this weekend. They're playing TCU this weekend, if you didn't know, on Friday. Actually, not even this weekend. Friday. They're playing Friday. OU wins this game. They're 10-2. Which I think, really, when we put this back in the perspective of what we talked about before the season started, our season projections, we all pretty much said 10-2 was about the ceiling, about where we wanted them to be. Like, we would consider, like, well, this is us saying the BV experiment has worked and has worked well. And so and really, honestly, even at 9-3, I think we can say that, especially considering some of the issues you've had this year, still combating everything that transpired with just a thin roster. I think the ability to build depth at a lot of positions is impressive, but you haven't been able to do that at every position group. So, anyways, let's get into this weekend. Let's focus on this weekend. You're playing TCU. It's Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time in Norman, Oklahoma. So it's senior night. Big game. TCU, this is a very interesting game. So I feel like a lot of people have looked at TCU and said TCU's not any good. And I would probably push back on that a little bit. Especially when you look at the statistics, I think this is a lot better team. I think this is a team that OU is going to have to show up and want to play on both sides of the ball to really get the win. And like I said, it being on a Friday, short week, some of those things, OU's maybe without Dylan Gabriel. I don't know. So, but let's just jump into TCU's offense. We're going to talk about them real quick. So TCU's offense is very prolific, actually. So you have they're 14th in total offense at 462 yards per game. OU is 7th, by the way. So pretty close. OU, I actually don't have the stats, so this is just okay. But I think OU's at like 470, 480 yards per game. So it's pretty close in total offense for those for OU and TCU. Now, one big problem for TCU this season has been their turnovers. They are tied for 90th in turnovers. So that's not good. They have 4 fumbles, 14 interceptions. So that's definitely been an area that they've struggled with quite a bit. Now, OU is 29th. OU has 12 total turnovers. So OU definitely wins in that department throughout the season. But we have seen games where OU has got I feel like that may be even a deceptive stat a little bit because OU was very, very protective of the ball in the first, up till Texas. And then since then we've seen not them be turnover happy, but at the same time they've been much less. They've done much worse, I guess, at protecting the ball. But TCU, they are 9th in passing offense, 310 yards per game, and OU is 7th. That's 314 yards per game. So, I mean, like, these teams in the passing game are very, very close. And really, honestly, I would even say that in a lot of aspects, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit when we go through some of these players, the way that they do it is similar with personnel. I guess their personnel is similar in some ways. So, and then in rushing offense, TCU is 74th at 153 yards per game. OU is 38th at 178 yards per game, which almost surprised me that OU was 38th. That kind of shocked me a little bit just because the running game has been so inconsistent. So it makes me wonder, what you could do if you would actually if it just had been more consistent. I feel like this team could, looking at those stats, it's like, could this team be a top 10 to 15 rushing offense? What does that put them? Offensively, that has to put them near the top. I mean, they already are. They're already 7th. So now, how does TCU do that? It's Josh Hoover is their current starting quarterback. He came in. I think he's been starting the last 5 games, and he's a very different quarterback. Chandler Morris went down, I believe, against Iowa State, and with an injury. And Josh Hoover just kind of took the reins and has not given the job back. The dude's been pretty prolific, and he's only a freshman. So, but the big difference between him and Chandler Morris is Hoover isn't necessarily an immobile quarterback by any stretch. However, he is very he's not mobile as Chandler Morris for sure. And I think he's that quarterback that, if you just abandon him and don't I don't think you need to spy him by any means, but if you just let him run, then he can run it well enough to get some yards. He's not he's not a statue in the backfield. So, but his stats are pretty decent, especially for a freshman. He's a redshirt freshman. He is throwing for about 64%. He has 1,862 yards in pretty much 5 games. He's technically played 7, but we'll say 5. That he started in. And he has 11 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Now, he has a little bit on the interceptions, but again, I think some of that's to be expected from a freshman quarterback. And since he's come in, I don't think the rushing, it's when you look at their stats, I haven't got to watch much of TCU, but they just have not been as productive in the running game since he's become quarterback. strangely enough, as good as his stats are, I think teams are just basically stopping the run and then making him beat him with their arm and then counting on him to throw turnovers. So, but like I said, for a freshman, the kid is really, really good. I think if this kid stays at TCU and he keeps developing, I think he'd be really good. And the other crazy stat I have, he has 240 attempts, and that's technically in 7 games, but one was a blowout against like Nicholls State or whoever they played, half a game against Iowa State, and then 5 as a starter. So really, let's say 5.5, 6 games. So he's throwing 40 pass attempts a game. Probably more than that. So again, they're very, very heavy, lean very heavy on the passing game. He threw 83% last week against Baylor. And if you look at his stats, he's just gotten better and better every week. So, but, that also begs the question, are we going to see Chandler Morris has played a little bit in spot duty here and there throughout the last couple of games? Are we going to see them have some? I would expect that we might see some Chandler Morris. I think we'll see a little bit of him out there on this game, just as a mobile quarterback to give that little bit of a wrinkle so that you can see them sort of, attack the OU's run defense that last week looks honestly terrible against a horrible running team. So we'll see. Because TCU is going to throw everything they have. This is TCU's. This is the game that would give TCU bowl eligibility, which I can't tell you. There was the game against Oklahoma State. There's been a number of games like this where it's been senior night, last game of the season in Norman, and somebody ends up getting a win that shouldn't just to get bowl eligible. So, yeah, I think OU is going to have their hands full with him, but I think he's really good for it. The other guy is Amani Bailey. Now, Amani Bailey played last year on the national championship team, but it was like a little bit more running back by committee. But I think this guy has had maybe the quietest, really, really good season of anybody in the Big 12. So he's got 202 carries for about 1,060. So he's over 1,000. He's a 1,000-yard rusher. He's averaging 5.2 yards a carry, and he has 7 touchdowns. So the dude can ball. I really like what I see with him. He's kind of like, he really is just a good back. Again, last week I think it was just there was so many guys in that backfield for TCU, and so he didn't get as much run. But this year he just really showed out. And honestly, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a guy that you're going to have to watch in the flats. He's just a good all-around back. He's a solid guy. That's going to be maybe the second best guy, or the second guy that you're going to have to really watch for. And I think this is where we're going to get to how TCU and OU are similar in their personnel. When you look at their receiving core, they don't have anybody that statistically has just established themselves as the alpha of that room, so to speak, or as the guy. When you look at OU, you can name a ton of guys, and you see some guys with some really elite talent, and you see some guys that are really, really good, that do a lot of special things. But like when you look at it, there's a lot of guys that are like in the same realm of each other statistically. So they have Savion Williams. He's got 38 receptions for 525 yards and 4 touchdowns. J.P. Richardson has 42 receptions for 502 yards and 3 touchdowns. And now this is the guy, and I'm not even doing this because of favoritism, because of my name, Jared Wiley. 39 receptions, 481 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So they've got some guys. This isn't like we're going to be able to double cover or put double coverage on somebody and we're good. They're that team that everybody's is got a chance to catch the ball, and you've got to play sound on everybody. So I think that's they share that quality with OU a little bit. Now the O-line, I would say the O-line is good, not elite. But they're a team that's they can push you around if you let them. This D-line is going to have to play a much better game than they did against BYU. This O-line for TCU is far better than what BYU has. This is going to be a big. I think if you're looking for one position group for TCU that's going to be the position group to watch, I would actually say the O-line over the receiving or any of the others. While they're not the best, I think that's what hinges on this game the most. But overall, I think this team is really good offensively. I think they have a lot of ways they can beat you, and I think, like I said, again, they need one win to be bowl eligible. These guys want to be bowl eligible, especially after coming off of the season they had last year. And really, when you look at their wins and losses, it's kind of like the opposite of last year, where last year they won all the close games. Like somehow they found a way to win every close game last year. They had like 7 wins last year by a total of like 14 points, or something crazy. It was insane, and it's a little bit the opposite this year. So I don't think this is a team, as strange as it is to say, I don't think this team is that much as bad as it is as its record shows. They've just lost a lot of close games, but they've also shown, if you watch the Baylor game, while Baylor's defense is not any good, this offense showed that they can move the ball. So you got to play sound, and this is going to be a good test for OU. So let's go to the OU defense. How are they going to respond to that? Man, so I actually texted Daryl, and I asked him what's your key for this team, for this defense, and he said, I think the D line needs to find itself again. So I know that the defensive line played really bad last week, and Daryl and I talked about it, and Daryl was very down on them. I've listened to some of the other podcasts, like Gabe and Teddy, and even BV. BV kind of highlighted some things about how he thought that it was more the linebackers. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the last of the game, and I really haven't. I need to go back and watch the whole game again. I think either way, I think the D-line needs to play a little bit better, but yeah, I don't disagree. That's going to be, the trenches is where this game's going to be win and loss. As cliche as it is saying, as much as we say it every week. The problem for OU is they right now have nobody that's an elite pass rusher. They have nobody that's an elite D lineman, but they just got a lot of dudes that can play. It's just when they decide to play. Like Ethan Downs has elevated his game far above what we thought he could a year ago, but he's still not elite, for example. So I do think that's a big key to it. And, for me, I think it's just going to be getting pressure with 4 to 5 guys. So that kind of highlights that too. But I also think it's just, you need, that also comes down to your linebackers or, just that front 7 playing tough to where, they not only stop the run, but they can get after the quarterback. With this team, you need to drop as many guys into coverage as you can. I'm not saying play a prevent defense, but the more guys that you're able to drop into coverage while still getting pressure, the better off you are. Now, because you could say that every week, but this team has not been elite running the ball. So that is what it is. I think that we're just gonna have to truly get after them, and truly stop them with 4 to 5 guys, and then this game can really go U's way. Now, for who I'm going to be watching on the defensive side for OU, I'm going to be watching hopefully a fully healthy Danny Sussman. Now, for those again that don't know, didn't watch the last pod or haven't heard the news, last week he was basically on IV drip, I believe, before the game. The night before, he had the flu. He was severely sick. And he still was the leading tackler. The dude's just got it. And I highlighted, I feel like he elevates the entire defense when he's on the field. So I want to see what he's like, hopefully fully healthy. We haven't even talked about his ankle. That seems to be mostly better, even though it looks like they've taped the crap out of his ankle the last few weeks. But still. But, I think he's a guy that can elevate this team. I'm hoping that he can get those guys, the linebackers especially as much as BV seemed to lay the blame at the linebacker room's feet for the BYU game. I think they're correctable. I think they're things that you can fix. And that's even what he said. BV said, we didn't just get beat. It was just guys missing assignments. That's things that you can coach. So it sucks when you just get beat because you just can't coach somebody to be bigger or stronger or faster or whatever. So, and And then the other guy is give me more Billy Bowman. Obviously. So I want to see more Billy Bowman, and I guess like my +1 would be Key Lawrence. Like Key Lawrence, like I highlighted last week, is I feel like he's kind of disappeared a little bit in the last, since Texas. Like I said, I don't feel like we see him as much. I'm not saying he doesn't make plays, but I just don't feel like he has the impact on the game overall, and I want to see him really establish himself as a guy that makes plays. So, let Key make your presence felt. And then I asked Daryl, 2 guys to watch on defense. He said R. Mason Thomas, he wants him to contain the QB, and Deshaun back healthy and playing well. I think those are great picks. I mean, I think we've all been clamoring to see more R. Mason Thomas. We've seen flashes of him, but I feel like that dude's could do way more than what he has done. So, yeah, I think the defense is going to have its hands full. I don't think you can look at this team and say, well, they're 5-6. TCU's not any good. Like I said, this is a team. This defense is going to have to play one of its best games if they want to shut them down. I don't think this is going to be a team you're going to hold to 10 points, right? So we'll see, but I think this is definitely going to be a test. Now, moving on, speaking of defense, move on to TCU defense. Now, this has been the weakest part of their team by far. And this is probably why they've lost a lot of those close games. This is probably why they are 5-6. But even then, when you really look at the numbers, it's kind of wild. Like I said, statistically, they're not far from OU. I mean, they're not as good as OU in any category, but some of them, they're a lot closer than you think. So, for example, they're 65th in rushing defense. OU's only 57th. And they're only separate, but that's 5 yards per game difference between those. So that's just one statistical category. But all the others are a lot closer than you might think. 53rd in scoring defense. That's 24 points per game. OU's tied for 29th at 20 points per game. They're 86th total defense, 390 yards per game. OU is 64th at 378. 96 passing defense, 240 yards per game, and OU is 76th in passing defense. So, like I said, OU is pretty much better in every statistical category that I could find, without going into some crazy ones. But I definitely think this is a defense that, again, it's good enough that you have to take them seriously. It's better than BYU's. It's better than it's better than Oklahoma State's. So you really have to take that into account. You're going to have to play a good game. There's going to be, this is not a game. This is not a team you can sleepwalk against. And they got some ballers. So just to start out with some of the guys on the front seven, Dominic Williams, dude, number 52, that guy can ball. That dude is all over the place. He was playing kind of like a nose position last year. And then this year they've moved him to where he kind of plays everywhere. I've seen that he's played a little bit of D tackle. I've also seen him play he's just all over the field. The dude's 6'2", 320, and he does not move like he is that big. He does not move like a 320-pound dude. He is that dude is an animal. So definitely watch number 52. I think he's going to have a big impact on the game. Again, we're talking about the trenches. This is going to be a game where we've talked about some of the interior O-line problems for OU. I think he can give them fits. That dude is a monster. Another guy is Nambi. I'm gonna absolutely abuse this name, and I apologize. Nambi Abiazor. Number 4. We're gonna go call him number 4. He is a baller too. 6'3", 225. He's a linebacker, but he, again, plays much bigger. Dude can really come down and hit you. Again, flies around the ball. He's not an elite athlete, I don't think, but the dude plays just hard. He's got that very I can't remember. Was his name Rose? I can't remember his first name. Was it Mike Rose or something like that? That played for Iowa State. That was just all over the place, kind of like that. He's not an elite athlete, but the dude just knows how to ball. I believe he's their leading tackler. So again, really, really good. Mark Perry is a safety, and that's another guy that can just play. The dude is a baller. He comes down and he's there in run support. He's there in coverage. He's a very underrated player in my opinion. I like what I see on his tape. Another guy, and like I said, if they're going to slow down this OU pass attack, if they want to keep it from, especially if OU is going to attack down the field, Mark Perry's going to be a guy that's going to help out a lot. Just a few guys to circle. Like I said, I don't think this is an elite team on defense. I think they're good, not great. But I think OU should be able to do what they want to do for the most part, right? I think that this defense has that ability to play well. But like I said, I just think across the board, OU should be better on offense. The trenches is the biggest worry and biggest concern there. And like I said, their secondary is really not that good. Their pass defense has not been great this season. So that's where we're going to have to count on Levy to throw the ball downfield. And I guess we'll just roll right into that with the OU offense. Like, you got to be aggressive. The last few weeks, especially when you look statistically at TCU, they're a team that likes to put more guys in the box and just try to stop. I think they just have committed to stopping the run, and hopefully that will slow down the pass. And I think that means that OU is going to have to. We can't see a bunch of jet sweeps. Again, I've already spoken out. I'm fine seeing jet sweeps. I don't want to see more than like 4 a game, but I don't want to see a bunch of laterals and bubble screens. I need to see the ball thrown down the field, so you can start pulling some of those guys out of the box, because that's the only way you're going to do it is if you're just aggressive, get some slants, get some stuff going. You're just going to have to pass the ball. Again, you can run the ball, but when you are passing, let's actually pass the ball down the field. And the other thing I think we'd talk about, I mean, to really right off the top, is Dylan Gabriel, like the storyline right now, is Dylan Gabriel going to play? We obviously know Dylan Gabriel went out with a undisclosed head injury. Now I think most of us have seen the replay of him falling and hitting his head. So it's to me pretty clear that it was a concussion. And the way that the staff has been, especially on a short week, I cannot see Dylan Gabriel playing. Right? So if Jackson Arnold trots out there, my concern is Jeff Lebby going to trust him enough to be aggressive and attack this defense and let him throw the ball down the field? We did see a little bit of it last week, but I don't want to see us like miss one deep ball and then all of a sudden we're running the ball and not passing, or we're doing bubble screens or jet sweeps or whatever. Run the game plan with Jackson Arnold. I think the dude's got it. I know he's a true freshman, so we're going to see some true freshman stuff, and that can be scary. But I also just think that kid gets it, so run your game plan. And that's going to come down to Jeff Lebby's play calling. To a huge part. Like I said, and that's one thing I want to highlight is when you look at the stats for OU's offense, I mean, we're in the top, at worst, we're in the top 40, right? In pretty much every category. Like in rushing offense, we're 38th, right? Now, I just think when you put the context into things, I understand Kansas was terrible. There's no question that Kansas was a terribly called game. And, there's been some suspect play calls here and there. I totally get that. However, I think this offense is really, really good. So I do think that he gets a little bit more heat than he should. So, but again, when's he going to do another Kansas? When is he going to lay an absolute egg? The conditions, Jackson Arnold, all these things are going to play a factor. It seems like that plays into Jeff Levy's head a lot more than it should. But again, we'll have to see. And then, to help Jackson out, dude, let Sawchuk eat. Give Gavin Sawchuk the ball. The dude went off last week. And quite honestly, since they've basically made him the feature back, when Towie went down with injury, you can tell Towie's, I don't know if they've really said, but it just does not look like he's 100%. I'm assuming he's not 100%. I don't know what's going on with Marcus Major and Barnes, and I don't know. The running back room has been very, very weird. Last week, though, your feature back was Sawchuk, and he stuck with him. And you really kind of have for about 2 or 3 games, and the dude's just gotten better every single week. Like, let him play. Give him the ball. I'd love to see him have 20 to 30 carries this game. Or something absurd. I think that's what's going to be a key, is being able to run the ball with some effectiveness. I know that that's the strength of the TCU defense, but I still think you have to run the ball. Because if you're going to have long-term success in this game, you're gonna have to throw body blows, and you're gonna have to just run the ball and do what you do, impose your will. But in order to do that, like I said, JFA, we've already talked about Jackson Arnold. Is he going to establish, who do we think he's going to establish chemistry with? I think is a big question. You have Stoops, Farouk, Anderson, Jaden Gibson. Who's going to be that guy that he really establishes that chemistry with and is able to really link up with? We've seen Dylan really do that with Drake. He had that with Andrew Anthony. Who's that going to be for Jackson Arnold? I know it's a lot to say that he's going to have a chemistry in his first game as a starter, if he is the starter. But I think if he plays, I think you got to ask that question. Because a lot of these guys, are going to Stoop. This is going to be Stoop's senior night. And that's the other thing we have to talk about, too, is this is senior night. This is the last time Drake Stoops is going to play in Norman. That's going to be an emotional thing for him. He's been at OU for a decade, it feels like. The dude bleeds OU. I mean, everybody saw the video of him. What was that? A couple weeks ago. I think the dude's a leader. I think he loves OU. He's just a phenomenal athlete. I think he's a lot better. I think he's very underrated. So I know that he's going to be amped to play in this game. But you just want to see it. I do wonder if some of the guys are going to be playing on senior night. I know a lot of people are going to be looking also for, is Dylan Gabriel going to be, I assume he'll be out there on senior night if it's his last, some of those things, what's going to happen with Tyler Guyton, some of those guys you're really looking at to see if they're going to be out there senior night, because you think if they're out there on senior night, there's a good chance that they've decided they're not coming back next year. So I think that that's going to be a big storyline. So I'm sure I'll be in the Discords or the Twitter looking for somebody that's at the game to say this person was out there giving roses to their mom or their family or whatever. But yeah, and to go back to that, so just to give our guys, we always do this. We'll give some guys that I'm going to look for. Again, I've already said one, Drake Stoops. Last time in Norman, the dude's been clutch. Last week he didn't have the statistics he did the week before, but the dude the last few weeks, I mean, I've said it. I don't think he's the best receiver on this team. But if I'm having to pick somebody to throw to when it's 4th and 1 or whatever, it's a 4th down, 3rd down situation, Drake's the dude I'm counting on. The dude's clutch. And he's going to want to play up. And then my other one is just going to be, I guess, just going to go Jackson Arnold. I really, like I said, I'd put a lot of money on Jackson Arnold being the starter, given the history with this, with how OU's handled concussions and stuff. I mean, he didn't last year he didn't play with the full week. I can't see that in a condensed week. He's going to be a whole lot better. But Venables was positive. But again, Jackson Arnold, if he plays, a lot of this is going to hinge on him. He's going to have a better game than he had last week. Which a lot of that was just, you throwing him in the fire. I imagine that Jackson Arnold's getting a lot more snaps. And is going to be a little bit more familiar and hopefully have some of those nerves shook off. I think the dude's elite. But, and then, and I think you have to ask the question, are they going to let him use his legs? Like we've seen Dylan Gabriel, either of them, are we going to see them use their legs in this game? Especially if it's Jackson Arnold, because if he goes out with concussion or some sort of injury, then you've got General Booty and Davis Bevel, and we've seen the result of Davis Bevel playing. So, it'll be an interesting thing there. I don't want us to play scared, but that is a question. And Daryl's guys, Jaden Gibson, he said he feels like JFA can just get him the ball. So I think Daryl feels like he has a little bit more chemistry there, which is fair. And then Sexton, we haven't talked about the offensive line a ton, but yeah, I think Sexton, he played really well last week. Um, I'm just interested. It's the same thing. It feels weird that we're in the last game of the season, of the regular season, and we're still talking about who's going to start on the offensive line. That's just a crazy. Like when you think about that, that's crazy, absolutely crazy. So, but yeah, Sexton is has been good. So I think it's a good pick. I just think we're gonna have to. The offense is going to have to be aggressive and attack this TCU defense. And like I said, I hope that Lebby doesn't get in his head and play scared or call a scared game. But I honestly think that they should be able to put points on this defense, and I just hope it's not too much of a boat race. And then of course I just think also is you just can't rely. I think especially after last week and something we didn't talk about a ton, you can't rely on your kicking, right? Like you can't rely on Schmidt to get you a field goal. Like if my nightmare is that you're down by 2 and you got Zach Schmidt out there with 1 second on the clock kicking a field goal. That's my worst nightmare right now. So you don't want to be in that scenario right now. You do, and I know BV was asked this week about the kicking situation, and I guess they've had some injuries. I forget the kid's name. That's the backup. Should not be a backup, but again, something that they're gonna have to get resolved this offseason. I don't know if they can hit the portal. It'd be kind of awesome if they got Boomer from UCF, but just somebody. The punting seems like it's gotten sorted. I think that there's a lot of positives there. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to have to see this offense play one of its better games to end up winning, I think, because I think as good as the defense is, I can't see this defense holding them to that few of points, right? Like you're going to have to put up points to put this game away. And you want to so you can keep the crowd in it and things like that. So, and like I said, I just want Drake. I'd love for Drake to have another 150-yard receiving game. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think OU wins. I think that they should be able to offensively move the ball, and then defensively, I'm just hoping that BV has got these guys fired up. I'm hoping Danny gets some guys fired up. I hope that they've corrected some of those things. Maybe that's a little too much sunshine given a short week. But yeah, I just really like what I see. So it's going to be a good game. And like I said, it's a Friday. We don't have to wait. It's 11 a.m. kickoff. Basically, roll out of bed, get your breakfast, talk with your friends and family, and then turn on the TV and you got football, right? So I'm excited. And there's, like I said, plenty of other good games. So we're going to go to our pick'ems. I'm going to do our pick'ems now. What we're going to do is, since Daryl is not on the pod with me, I'm going to give my picks, and then we'll just have to, add his on the next pod. So pick'ems, the first one we're going to start with is Oregon State at Oregon, and Oregon is favored by 13.5 points, which is a lot, I feel like, against Oregon State, because I think Oregon State's a pretty good team. But I think Oregon's playing really, really well. Bo Nix is playing really, really well. I think that Bo Nix very well could win the Heisman. So I'm going to pick Oregon. Like I said, I think they're hitting on at the right time. But I think Oregon State is. I think Oregon's going to, it's going to be close on covering. I think Oregon wins by like 14 points. So I mean, they barely cover. Next up, we have a game. The next 2 games are going to be important for OU's destiny getting into the Big 12 title game. And we have Texas Tech at Texas. Texas is favored by 14 points. Now, Texas Tech obviously had the upset last week. There's, Yormark made his comments. There's all kinds of storylines with this game. And as much as I hate to cheer, I'm not going to cheer for Texas ever. But I just think that they're too much for Texas Tech. So I'm going to go Texas. And plus, let me hedging my bets, because every time I pick Texas, it's just one of those things. I feel like if I pick Texas, then it gives my superstition is that they'll actually lose. So if I lose that game, if I lose that pick, I'm happy. BYU at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is favored by 17 points. Now, obviously, they're going to be playing at Oklahoma State, so they're not going to be playing on the goat field that we played on in Provo, which was a whole storyline. Listening to Gabe and Teddy, it sounded like they maybe had like they're working towards getting that remedied. Apparently, it's been an issue for a while now, and they have people like they're consulting to get it fixed. So hopefully in the next coming years it will be. I mean, it's terrible. But anyway, this one's gonna be at Boone Pickens Stadium. BYU in Oklahoma State 17. Man, it's hard for me to say. Ollie Gordon's kind of slowed down a little bit the last couple weeks. I do think Oklahoma State wins. I just don't know that they cover. I think Gundy is a coach that I don't know. He's just a weird coach. I just don't think that sometimes he coaches that well in these games. So I'm gonna pick but I am gonna pick Oklahoma State. Actually, I think I'm gonna pick Oklahoma State. Again, cover my odds. If I lose this pick, I'll be happy because that gets OU closer to the conference championship game. So I'll pick Oklahoma State to cover. Now a big one. Ohio State at Michigan. Michigan is favored by 3. So very close spread, which we expected. And I mean, I don't know. This is a crazy one. Like I said, I feel like everybody this year that's not a Michigan fan is cheering for Ohio State because of the scandals. You know, and what's funny is I don't really, the whole sign stealing thing, I think to some degree is a big deal. And then I also think it's blown out of proportion by some people a little bit. However, it's like when you really start adding all the things up, I start to really like look at Jim Harbaugh and be like, dude, what are you doing? You know, there's a lot of things going on there. I don't know. This one's a close game. It's a coin toss to me. I'm going to pick Ohio State. I honestly think Michigan wins, but dude, Marvin Harrison Jr. is so freaking good. I think that he may just dominate this game. But it's going to, if McCord can throw the ball to him, it's going to depend on, you know, how well they can run the ball. I mean, Ohio State's going to have to play their best game. I think that they've done really well. I think both teams have played really well, but I also don't think this is going to be by far the stiffest competition they faced all year. That's an obvious statement, but I mean, by a larger margin than you might think, being that they're in the Big Ten. So next one up, the Iron Bowl, which is this the like biggest who cares Iron Bowl of all time? I mean, for anybody outside of Alabama. Alabama is at Auburn this year. Alabama is favored by 14 points. Now, Auburn, not very good this year. They just got beat by, was it New Mexico State? Not a great team this year. Still figuring some things out. Alabama, on the other hand, is started to figure some things out. I don't think their offense is elite, but they've gotten better. You know, so I think they're just kind of figuring things out as they go too, but I think that they're miles ahead. So I'm going to take Alabama. I think this could be a bloodbath. And I think Alabama, knowing the way Nick Saban is, he's going to coach that they're going to beat the brakes off of them and then petition the media to say, why are we not in the college football playoff conversation when they go to the SEC championship game? Next up, we got my home state's rival, or not my home state, but the state I live in. Florida State at Florida. Now, here's an interesting. Florida State is only favored by 6.5, which I don't know. Weird. It's weird because Florida is like a good team, but they're not as good as what people thought. Maybe I don't know. It's hard for me to decipher what to think of Florida. But 6.5 seems like that may be a line that's there because Jordan Travis is not going to be playing. If you saw the injury last week, I recommend not watching it. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, hopefully for a speedy recovery, but he's not going to be back this week. 6.5. I'm going to take Florida State. I think Florida State's still a really good team. That team is really good at a lot of positions besides Jordan Travis, besides the QB position. And I just don't think Florida's that good. I think Florida's played up a lot better a few weeks, and I think they may this week, but I just don't think they're going to be enough to overcome Florida State. And then, of course, the last that we will talk about, TCU at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's favored by 10. Favored by 10. Oh, man. I picked Oklahoma most of this week. I gotta go. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go TCU to cover. I think OU wins. I think TCU covers. This is another superstitious Jared coming in because I feel like TCU. Every time I picked OU, it's like since the Texas game, we've not done well. When I picked against OU, we've done better. So I'm gonna pick TCU to cover, but I think OU wins. And so like I said, when Daryl lets me know, I'll add those. My final score prediction is gonna be. I'm gonna go 45 to 38. 45-38 for the good guys. I think it's gonna be a fun game. It's gonna be, hopefully we're all full of turkey, stuffing, all those sorts of good things. Maybe we got a little bit of the pumpkin pie in us, pecan pie. I don't even know. I'm not a pecan guy, a pecan pie guy. I'll eat pumpkin all day. But pecan pie is just something I've never developed a taste for, I guess. So again, drop in your comments. Maybe you can argue about it. You guys get an argument down in the comments about pecan pie, pumpkin pie. What's the superior pie? Apple pie? I don't know. Talk about pie. But yeah, like I said, I hope everybody has a good Thanksgiving weekend. I hope everybody gets a lot of good time with family and friends, and I hope you get a lot of good turkey. So we're having a good time. I'm having a good time. We hope you are too. So we'll talk to you guys later. Bye, Baker.